What if one quiet night in the California desert, the most sensitive listening equipment humanity has ever built, suddenly locked onto a signal from deep space? A signal so precise, so structured, and so deliberate that every scientist in the room slowly fell silent. No one spoke, no one moved, because the pattern appearing on their screens was something none of them could explain. And what followed in the hours after that moment has become one of the most unsettling mysteries modern science has ever faced. Before we dive deeper, if you enjoy exploring mysteries of the universe and stories that challenge everything we think we know about space, make sure you like this video and stay with me until the end, because the truth behind this event grows more astonishing with every detail. Right now, at this very moment, something extraordinary is unfolding in our solar system. Not a discovery from decades ago being debated again. Not a theoretical discussion inside some distant academic conference. Something real is happening in space above our heads right now, and it is forcing some of the most brilliant scientific minds on Earth to confront questions they never expected to face. At the center of this story is an object known as 3IAtlas, only the third confirmed interstellar visitor ever detected entering our solar system. Objects like this originate from outside our stellar neighborhood, traveling unimaginable distances before briefly passing through our cosmic backyard. But unlike the previous visitors, 3IAtlas did not simply drift quietly through space. It appeared to speak. The story begins in the early hours of October 17, 2025. NASA's Deep Space Network in the California desert was running routine monitoring operations. These massive antennas normally track spacecraft traveling billions of miles from Earth. They maintain contact with probes like Voyager, humanity's most distant explorer, still sending faint signals from beyond the outer edges of the solar system. These systems were designed to listen carefully to the whispers of our own machines drifting through space. They were never designed to detect something like this, because what they heard that morning was not static, not interference, and not the random noise that constantly fills the universe. What they detected was a repeating electromagnetic pulse, every 47 minutes, exactly the same each time. And the source of that signal appeared to be the interstellar object known as 3IAtlas. At first, the engineers thought it had to be an equipment malfunction. Instruments were checked, recalibrated, and tested again, but the pattern continued appearing with flawless consistency. Each cycle lasted precisely 11.3 seconds, not 11 seconds, not 12, exactly 11.3 seconds every time. Nature rarely behaves with that level of mechanical precision. Cosmic events are messy, chaotic, and unpredictable. But this signal behaved more like a machine, and within just 5 hours of observation, something even stranger happened. The signal strength increased by more than 300%. Whatever was producing that signal inside 3IAtlas wasn't fading. It was powering up. And what scientists discovered next would make this signal far more unsettling than anyone first imagined. To understand why this signal immediately raised alarms, we need to talk about the exact frequency it was traveling on. Because this one detail changed the entire conversation inside NASA almost instantly. The transmission from 3IAtlas was detected at 1.42 GHz. At first glance, that number may not seem important, but to astronomers and physicists, it is one of the most meaningful frequencies in the entire universe. That frequency is the natural emission line of hydrogen, the most abundant element in existence. Hydrogen fills the cosmos. It forms stars, galaxies, and massive clouds of gas drifting between them. Because it is everywhere, scientists have long believed that if an intelligent civilization somewhere in the universe ever tried to communicate across the vast distances of space, it would choose this exact frequency. Astronomers even gave this region of the radio spectrum a special nickname. They call it the water hole. It is considered a quiet and stable part of the electromagnetic spectrum where signals can travel long distances without heavy interference. In simple terms, it is the perfect cosmic meeting point for communication. Think of it like a universal channel that any civilization studying the universe would eventually discover. If you wanted to send a message across interstellar space, and you wanted the receiver to immediately recognize that the signal was intentional, this would be the logical place to transmit it. And that is exactly where 3IAtlas was broadcasting. But the signal itself was even more complex than researchers first realized. Inside the repeating 11.3-second cycle, analysts discovered smaller patterns embedded within the transmission, subsignals repeated every 1.7 seconds. Inside, those were even faster fluctuations occurring in fractions of a second. It looked almost like layers of information stacked inside one another, similar to a Russian nesting doll of signals. Each layer carried its own rhythm and structure. At that point, NASA began bringing in specialists who normally deal with the most advanced communication systems on Earth. Cryptographers, radio engineers, and artificial intelligence researchers started analyzing the data together. Their task was simple in theory but extremely difficult in practice. Determine whether the signal could possibly be natural. So they compared it to every known cosmic phenomenon that produces radio emissions, pulsars, magnetars, quasars, solar interference, plasma fluctuations. Every possibility was examined carefully. But after days of analysis, the result that came back stunned everyone involved. The probability that the signal was produced by a natural source was incredibly small. In fact, according to the analysis, the probability that the signal had an artificial origin exceeded 99.7%. That number changed everything, because if the signal was artificial and it was coming from an object that had just entered our solar system from interstellar space, then one possibility suddenly became impossible to ignore. Something out there had not only arrived, it might actually be trying to communicate, and just 3 days later, the signal did something that made the situation far more serious than anyone had expected. 3 days after the signal was first detected, the situation changed in a way no one inside NASA had prepared for. What began as a strange scientific anomaly suddenly started to look like something far more deliberate. On the night of October 20th, just after 11:15 p.m. Eastern Time, the repeating signal from 3IAtlas behaved differently. Until that moment, the pulse had been broadcasting broadly into space, like a lighthouse, shining in every direction. But then, without warning, the signal compressed. For exactly 8 minutes and 24 seconds, the transmission narrowed into a focused beam, and that detail changed everything. In the natural universe, radio emissions spread outward in all directions. Energy radiates like ripples expanding across a still pond. Stars, pulsars, and other cosmic objects do not aim their signals. They simply emit energy that scatters into space. But this signal did not scatter. It concentrated. And the data confirms something even more unsettling. The beam was pointed directly at Earth. Observatories around the world quickly turned their instruments toward the object. Data from the Arecibo Legacy Observatory, which had been rapidly brought back online specifically to track 3IAtlas, verified the same result. The signal wasn't drifting across the sky or sweeping randomly through space. It was locked in place. Engineers ran the calculations again and again. They analyzed the orientation of the object, the direction of the beam, and Earth's position within the solar system. Every model produced the same conclusion: The alignment was far too precise to be coincidence. Something had aimed that signal at our planet intentionally. But the timing of this shift raised even more questions. The focus beam appeared exactly 9 days before 3IAtlas was scheduled to pass behind the Sunday. During that time, the intense solar glare would block the object from every telescope on Earth for nearly 3 weeks. It would simply disappear from view. Some scientists began quietly wondering whether the timing carried a message of its own, almost as if the object were saying, "Watch carefully now, because soon you will not be able to see me." Was it a greeting, a warning, or some kind of countdown? At the time, nobody had the answer. But what happened inside NASA the following morning revealed how seriously the situation was being taken. By the dawn of October 21st, the mood across several control rooms had shifted dramatically. The normal excitement that usually surrounds a discovery had vanished. In its place was something far quieter, something that looked very much like caution. Because suddenly, many of the screens that had been showing live telemetry from 3IAtlas displayed a single unfamiliar word: restricted. And that silence from the scientific world was about to become one of the most mysterious parts of the entire story. Normally, a discovery this extraordinary would trigger immediate global attention. Scientists love sharing breakthroughs. Press releases would appear within hours. Researchers would rush to publish papers. Interviews would flood news channels. Social media would explode with excited commentary from astronomers around the world. That is how science usually works. When gravitational waves were first detected, the announcement was made quickly. When the first image of a black hole was captured, the world learned about it almost immediately. When water ice was confirmed on the moon, space agencies proudly shared the discovery. But this time, something unusual happened. Nothing. No public statements, no press conferences, no scientific papers, not even casual posts from researchers who normally share every exciting detail of their work. Instead, an unusual silence spread across every major space agency. NASA said nothing. The European Space Agency remained quiet. China's National Space Administration offered no comment. Even the International Astronomical Union, which typically updates discoveries in near real time, made no announcement. The entire global space science community seemed to go dark at the same moment. Behind the scenes, rumors began circulating about a classified framework known as the Discovery Protocol. According to several reports, this protocol was developed after the first known interstellar visitor passed through our solar system years earlier. The framework outlines specific steps scientists must follow when they encounter something that could potentially involve extraterrestrial technology. Step 1. Verify the data internally. Step 2. Notify government and military officials before releasing information publicly. Step 3. Enforce a 72-hour communication blackout. Officially, that blackout period exists to prevent misinformation and ensure the science is accurate before the public hears about it. But unofficially, many researchers believe the rule serves another purpose. It buys time. Time for governments and scientists to understand what they are dealing with before the entire planet begins asking questions that nobody can answer. But something about the situation with 3IAtlas was different. Those 72 hours passed, then another day, then another. 5 full days went by, and still not a single agency released a statement. The silence continued, and that is when one respected astrophysicist decided to break ranks. Professor Avi Loeb, director of the Galileo Project at Harvard, and one of the most prominent voices in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, published a short but powerful statement that quickly spread through scientific circles. His words were direct. "We are witnessing institutional paralysis in the face of the extraordinary. This is not how science behaves. This is how fear behaves. Fear. For many people reading that statement, the question immediately followed. What exactly were the world's top scientists so afraid of? Because if the data coming from 3IAtlas was accurate, the explanation might require a possibility that most researchers had spent their entire careers trying not to consider. The data coming from 3IAtlas didn't just challenge expectations, it shattered them. Every measurement, every observation, and every signal pointed to an object that did not behave like anything previously seen in our solar system. It was hollow, with an internal density far lower than any rock or comet of its size should have. When it passed Mars, its gravitational influence barely registered, suggesting a mass far lighter than its visible dimensions implied. An object like this could not have formed naturally from cosmic debris. Its behavior was equally baffling. As it entered the solar system, it slowed down rather than accelerating under the pull of the sun's gravity. Gravity accelerates objects, comets, asteroids, and meteors, but 3IAtlas seemed to resist that natural force. The only plausible explanation was some form of active deceleration, as if it were being guided intentionally, and its trajectory, nearly parallel to the ecliptic plane, the flat path in which the planets orbit. An object arriving from outside our solar system should have intersected the plane at a steep angle, like a dart piercing a spinning disk. But 3IAtlas navigated in almost perfect alignment, as though it had been steered into position deliberately. Then there were its emissions and surface patterns. Observatories detected faint green wavelengths that didn't match any known natural compounds. No ice, no carbon, no silicates. Telescopes in Chile, Hawaii, and Spain observed triangular flashes along its surface, rotating in perfect synchrony. Together with the structured, layered signal at the hydrogen frequency, these patterns hinted at something far beyond ordinary physics. When a senior physicist analyzed the data, they concluded something remarkable. The symmetry, the geometry, and the modulation were synchronized. This was not a rock. It was intent made manifest. Some researchers even compared the spirals and sequences on the surface to magnetic fields or inverted DNA, suggesting a blueprint deliberately encoded in space. As October 29th approached, the signal evolved further. Rather than fading near its perihelion, the point closest to the sun, the bursts became compressed, faster, and increasingly intricate. Some describe them as musical, others as mathematical poetry. Every harmonic carried a level of structure impossible to explain through natural processes. And once more, 3IAtlas slowed down slightly, just a fraction of a kilometer per second, actively resisting solar gravity. It was not just an object in motion, it was a machine exhibiting control and purpose. By the time 3IAtlas crossed behind the sun on October 29th, the situation had reached a critical point. The signal stopped, the object vanished from telescopes for weeks, and the global scientific community was forced to confront a reality no civilization in recorded history had faced. A machine, or an intelligence, had traveled across light years, timed its arrival with precision, and chosen to broadcast directly to our planet. It was no longer a question of curiosity. Humanity was facing an intentional message, a challenge encoded in technology and transmitted across the void. Inside every agency, behind every screen, scientists and officials were weighing the consequences, continue in silence and wait, attempt a response and risk revealing our own intentions. Whatever the intelligence behind 3IAtlas was observing, it had seen how the world reacted: our fear, our institutional paralysis, our silence. Perhaps it was evaluating whether humanity was ready to participate in a conversation it had already begun. The universe, it seemed, had sent not merely a visitor, but a question wrapped inside a signal, wrapped inside an object, designed to test our response. And that question was simple, yet profound. What will we do when we can no longer pretend we are alone? Are we ready for the answer? Are we capable of facing an intelligence that has already been watching us, measuring our reactions, and perhaps even judging our readiness to engage? The countdown has already begun, whether we realize it or not. Somewhere in the vast darkness between the planets, something patient and ancient waits, watching, listening, and deciding. The story of 3IAtlas is not over. Every signal, every pattern, and every observation is a clue to a deeper truth about the universe and our place within it. The implications stretch beyond science and astronomy. They touch philosophy, sociology, and the very core of human perception. What we witness here may define how humanity approaches contact with intelligence beyond our world. And one thing is certain, ignoring it is no longer an option. If this story has captivated your imagination and you want to explore more mysteries of the cosmos, make sure to click the next video, subscribe to the channel, and join us as we continue uncovering astonishing secrets from the farthest reaches of space. The universe is full of surprises, and you won't want to miss what comes next.